Welcome, guys, to part 2 of our interview with Nicole. Again, if you missed part 1, I'll leave a link down below if you want to check out that episode first before jumping into this one, because I've been holding a question in since Friday. So this episode's going to hit the ground running. Let's go ahead and get started. You're listening to the PT Assistants podcast with your hosts, Ken
and Laura. Thanks for joining for another exciting episode.
So you mentioned like the whole like social media and the cold calling and stuff. And like what I'm picturing in my head, at least, like, do you have a cap of how many like recruits you can have under you?
No. As
Okay,
many as we can handle, pretty much, which is nice.
So I feel like it's like a hustle kind of feel. Like you work as much as you want to work. Like the harder you work, the more PTAs and therapies you can get underneath you. Like the more money you'll make, I'm assuming.
Pretty much, yeah. We work off of a commission, so I get a certain amount, dollar amount per hour of the traveler that I have, and that's how I make my money. So, also it's learning. I have a little bit more sympathy for those, annoying calls that you get, every single day, or from recruiters that are like, "Hey, I have this job for you. I have this job for you." I'm like, okay, now I know why they're doing that, because that's how they make money. So, forgive us when we're calling you, or if you're annoyed with us, like, that's why, and that's how we make money. Kind of a thing. Also with referrals. So a lot of times, you'll have companies that say, "Hey, like, send me any referrals. Do you know anybody that wants travel therapy?" Like, we pay, up to $1,000 for referrals, $500 for assistants and $1,000 for evaluating therapists. And, that's how you get more under your belt too, is people sending them to you.
Gotcha.
So, I've found that, just really trying to build my reputation and, my brand, so to say, as a recruiter, and just kind of, be trusted and, get my name out there as a trusted recruiter. And somebody who's going to understand you is really, part of the hustle, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because people ask me, actually, I get probably more questions about, oh, how do you like being a recruiter versus, wanting jobs, or, that's more of a response that I get of like, oh, like, that's really cool. I was thinking about doing this, kind of a thing. Yeah. And, to be completely honest, like, it's a pay cut at first. Like, I'm working at a pretty significant pay cut. But that's where I make it up with travelers, and that commission. So it's definitely a hustle for me right now in trying to make up that, to get up to where my PTA pay was. But, it'll happen with time. I have all confidence in myself.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
But it's definitely, you got to be prepared for it and ready for that. You're not going to come in making the big bucks, but if you work hard and, really, like you said, can put in that hustle and the time into it, it's going to pay off in dividends and make some good money. So
yeah, I definitely feel you on that whole other side. Sorry, Laura.
Oh no, you're good.
Like the whole other side of things. So I do PTA, but I'm also a marketer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at that other side of the window, I suppose, like, you start understanding a lot more. Like, okay, I can see why people do this. People like just kind of come in randomly, show up. Like, you're trying to put your brand out there. You're trying to put your name out there. And like you said, like, a big part of that is trust. And definitely with you having that background of being a PTA and living in those shoes, I feel like definitely goes a long way to helping other people come into the same field and to travel therapy.
Yeah, I definitely, I embrace it. I know that I'm now one of those annoying recruiters that reaches out to people, and when
I love that you admit it, though. I love it. I love that you embrace it.
Because I got one today. I got a text and a call, like a voicemail, and I was like, well, he's working on his list, but he was like, oh, we've had contact with you before. And I'm like, yeah, you probably had contact with me in like 2019, because I've only worked with Pioneer. I'm like, you're deep in your list, bud. Like, you are deep in your call list.
Trying to find what.
Yeah, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel for some people right now, kind of a thing. But, when I get someone that's like, no, I'm not interested, or, stop calling me, my reply is like, look, I've been there. I was a PTA. Like, I get that I'm one of those annoying recruiters. Like, I'll take you off our list, no problem. Like, have a good day, kind of a thing. Like, I totally own up to it, kind of a thing. Just to, partly show that I'm human, but, I also get it, I'm not out here to try and annoy you or, blow up your voicemail or anything like that. Just trying to find people jobs. That's all.
You never know. Like, that's the thing too, is a lot of, like, I know for a fact, honestly, until we did this podcast, me and Ken, like, knew nothing on travel. We knew nothing how to get into it. Nothing. But, we've talked to a lot because that seemed like a lot of people were interested. And there's so many people coming out of school, at least out here in Nevada. And I think the downfall for us is we need those 2,000 hours in Nevada to start working right away, like on your own. So like a lot of those skilled nursing and hospitals don't really take on new grads. So you don't really think about that kind of, hey, let me go to home health or let me try traveling, because of the fact that in our mindset kind of going through school is like, okay, I got to get my 2,000 hours and then I can like get going, which is not the case for all states. And so like you can do traveling right off the bat. And so I think for us, like, we knew nothing really of it and how to get into it. So you never know. Like, someone might be like, yeah, I kind of heard about it. I was always interested. And that one cold call could make the difference between having now a good partner for, a couple years of them traveling and you working with them. So
absolutely,
you never know. Yeah,
it's kind of like one of those hidden secrets. It's like a not so secret, I guess. In the therapy, they don't really talk about it in school as like, an option kind of a thing. Like I found out through friends, sort of thing. And when you tell people like, oh, I'm a travel therapist, they're like, oh, you mean like nursing? I'm like, yeah, pretty much, like just
exactly,
therapy.
pretty much. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah,
they're like,
sure,
oh, I didn't know you
not?
could do that. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, you make good money and you get to travel around. And I always said it was like interviewing for the place I wanted to settle or like live in too. Like if you've always wondered what California's like, get a travel job in California and come out and see. Like you're not putting roots down. You're not signing a 5-year contract or anything crazy, to work for a company. Like 3 months and you're done if you hate it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So, it's a great way to just kind of explore and see what you like and where you might want to live or not. And I'm pretty indecisive sometimes, so it was a good option for me.
Sample,
it was a good trial.
Around
like,
a little bit. She's like, all right, let's see what's over here.
Dude, I wish I would have known that earlier on. I would have done it in a heartbeat before I bought my house.
But like you said, like at least in Nevada, like it doesn't really even cross our mind because of those 2,000 hours. Like home health and travel, like 2 things almost off the table immediately from when you graduate.
Yeah,
which is crazy. I actually didn't know about that.
Yeah, Nevada, we have a 2,000 hour rule for PTAs. You have to hit 2,000 hours before you can, of direct supervision, before you can just be supervised, general supervision.
Interesting. I feel like that's kind of a pain, but...
Oh, it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's dumb. It's stupid.
I think we're the only state that has that.
No, there's a couple other, I think we decided when we looked into it. It's like 1 or 2. Yeah, it was weird.
That was the other way. I thought we were looking at like, nope, no one else has specifically 2,000 hours.
Like I suppose I could see the benefit, but like that also sounds like a pain if you're actually living it. Like
yeah, like I could see like 3 months maybe. 3 months. Yeah. But like that's what clinicals are supposed to be for. Exactly. But it's a rule that they're trying to drop out here. But I've been hearing that since I was out of school.
Since I was a tech, since I went to school, and since I've graduated, it's been talked about, and it's been talked about.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Well, speaking of those state laws, like, do you have to be familiar with those state laws, Nicole, at all? Like between different places, or just it's more to the PTA's discretion? Like, hey, you're going to be going to Oregon. I need you to brush up on their state laws.
Yeah. So a lot of states actually, when you apply for licensure, they have a jurisprudence exam, which is a long-term for a law exam, which is like the state practice and the laws of the state. California's is notoriously difficult. It's proctored. You have to go into a testing center to take it. It's difficult. I failed it the first time. I had to take it again. It's not fun. But
Nevada's is a take-home quiz.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Washington and Oregon are basically those two, and they're like, you get a question wrong, and they're like, oh, here's where to find the answer. Try again. Like, California's like, no, you need to be proctored. Like, you feel like you're taking your boards again. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, I think Arizona's the same way.
Yeah. There's a few states that have like proctored exams. I think Florida's another one too, and so that definitely helps. And it's a good thing because you don't want to go into a state where in one state you can do a modality as a PTA, in another state you can't, and then you try and go to, that kind of thing. So that way you don't get yourself into legal trouble either, which is good.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. But it's mostly up to the traveler, obviously to know that, like, as a recruiter, I'm not held liable or anything like that for anything.
Okay.
Makes sense. Yeah, we were talking to someone one time, and they were saying that they knew someone who petitioned to do dry needling as a PTA because technically their state licensure says nothing about it. And so they petitioned and were able to get certified and do dry needling as a PTA. However, I know California, that is out of the questions even for PTs. So
Yeah.
like knowing the different laws are important information to not get yourself in trouble.
Definitely. Especially if you're going from a state where you can, do those things. Like if you were dry needling in one state and then you go to California, that's a big shock,
That's no. Yeah, you don't want to be the one who be like, oh, by the way, let's do this. And everybody's like, say what?
Like, you can't do that.
You can't do that. What do you mean? And then they get mad because they can't do it. And so that's a good point, Ken, of bringing that up. I had a question. Give me in. It's end of day right now.
This is why I'm writing stuff down.
Yeah, well, you're smarter than me. No, my question was for those looking to going into being a recruiter, what advice would you give them?
I would say know your company, for sure. Do your research. Obviously, I had good experience with Pioneer. And actually, when I interviewed, I told them, it's Pioneer or bust. If I'm going to make this transition, like, I don't want to work with another company. I know how you all operate. This company has grown so much in just the 5 years that I was even a traveler with them, and continues to grow, which is, great. Um, and it's just a family. And I knew that this is where I wanted to go, and it was kind of a one-stop shop for me. So I guess that's makes me a little bit unique in my situation, but I would definitely, if you've worked with the company before and you know them and they've done well by you, then I would consider them. If you haven't worked for that company, you don't know, how they've been, definitely, reach out to travelers that have, see how they treated their travelers, see how, what their experiences were, that kind of stuff. Because there's definitely shady recruiters out there, and there's shady companies, and there's companies that just see you as a dollar sign, you know kind of a thing, and not as a human, and that's picking up their life every 3 months and moving, potentially to another state. So you want to make sure that, ethically, you're picking a good company that you're going to stand by too.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good like way to live from just like any, and from working as a PTA to recruiter to just anywhere. Just make sure you like where you work and ethically like align with what you believe in. I feel like that makes you love what you do a lot more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then my other question for you on just being a recruiter itself. Now, if you did want to start treating again, but you're like, I don't want to go back full time, is there an option as a recruiter to kind of go part time and do half and half? Have you even talked about that? I don't know if that's a thought.
Not that I know of with Pioneer. I wouldn't want to right now anyway, because I feel like I wouldn't be able to give 100% to my travelers either. Kind of going back to the, ethics and how you want to be treated by your company. I don't feel like I can give everything to them. So, I'm definitely going to do, just part-time, like PRN weekend work or something like that, just to kind of keep my skills up and, keep treating, because I do miss treating patients.
A little extra cash here, there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's like, there's some days where I'd be working home health. I'm like, man, if I could just work PRN, like, it'd be cool if I could just see like 3 patients a day or something, like I feel like I would give so much better treatment than having to see, 6 or 7 patients every day, or, more in the sniff, or, that kind of stuff. So it's like, I think that'll give me the best of both worlds, really.
I think I got 16 patients on my docket for tomorrow.
Oof, I don't miss those days in the sniff life.
Yeah, mine's luckily outpatient now.
So or outpatient. I mean, I guess those are
at least
similar.
they come walking in, though.
Yeah, that's true.
True, but seeing multiple at 1 hour can feel like a juggle at times.
Yeah.
And then when you're so used to it and you drop down to one and you're like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
What else am I? Definitely if you don't have like a talker or someone who's just like kind of dead face and they don't want to chit chat and they just want to get in and out and you're just like, so
Cool. Yeah.
how about that baseball game last night? You watched it? No? Okay. Music? No, you don't listen to that. Do you like anything?
Right. I feel like I
Just
because one of my
anything.
clinicals was outpatient, and I felt like I struggled the most with like the time management of it. Like I would always go over on patients. Like I would get like, oh, I really need to like do this deep tissue, and like, I would get carried away, and it's like before you know it, you're like an hour deep with the patient, and they're like, you need to move on. I'm like, ah,
It's like I've only been here for 5 minutes. Oh no, never mind.
yeah,
I gotta
My
go.
internal clock for 10 minutes is amazing. I will tell you that. I can get a 10-minute off the bat because 10 minutes you're on that bike and I'm getting you off of it.
yep,
I'm like, oh,
absolutely,
that bike, it's 9 minutes and 56 seconds. All right, I might stand here for the next 4.
yep.
Got really good at it. But my next question, and I don't know if Ken, do you have any more on just being a recruiter, Ken? Before I move on.
I do have one. Um, being like as the recruiter, is there any like big hurdles for the recruits that you come across on pretty often? Like, are people pretty worried about where they're gonna live? Are they worried about like the new like work environment, PTs? Is there anything that kind of comes across often, or is it just like everybody's a little bit different? Some people are worried about, oh, I want to be an inpatient, or some people are, I want to be an outpatient, or things like that.
I would say the biggest hurdle with recruits or travelers is not being flexible, and they're like, I need this pay in this location, this setting, and that's what we call a unicorn job in the industry, in the recruiting industry. And it's like, I'm probably not going to find you that job. I mean, it might be
I'll
there.
try.
I'll try, but like your percentage of me finding you something is going to, you're going to end up kind of disappointed because I'm not going to be able to find you anything,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a thing. So I would say that's probably the biggest struggle is when you have someone that's like very rigid in what they want. Um, kind of thing. Yeah, that's what I would
Okay.
say is probably the biggest hurdle.
Sounds good. I
Yeah.
don't know, Laura, if you had.
No, my
We,
next question just kind of is for those being a recruiter, what advice would you give those who are looking to become a traveling PTA?
So that's a great segue because flexibility. I would say the best thing that you can do as a traveler or, a potential traveler is to be flexible. We say, between setting, pay, and location, you want to be
Mm-hmm.
flexible with at least two of those, right? To be able to
okay.
have good chances at finding a job and being a successful traveler, at least in finding the jobs, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily as a PTA or a therapist.
Yeah.
So if you're like, I want, you know, San Francisco, then you need to be flexible on the pay that you're going to be getting, and you need to try and be flexible on your setting,
Yeah. That
kind of
makes
a thing.
sense.
Or if you say,
Yeah.
I want to work at a hospital. Okay, well, that hospital might be in the middle of Kansas. Are you okay with that? Kind of a thing. So you got to be, flexible on some of
Sorry.
that.
Everybody else can't see Ken. Ken was shaking his head no. No, I'm not. So
No.
that's why I just started laughing like it was perfect timing. No one can see the video, but it was funny.
So I would say like that's my best advice to any traveler, whether you're currently traveling or looking into it, is stay flexible, and then
Mm-hmm.
we'll be able to find you that job, and you'll be happy and have those experiences that you're looking for, kind of a thing. And just communicate with your recruiter. We're here to help you, but if you're not telling us the full story or what you're looking for, I can't help you. If you're not telling me
Yeah.
what you want.
And
So
if they have like an issue with the setting, do they come to you for with those issues?
yeah, typically yes. If they're having an issue, um, also as a recruiter, we kind of wear the hat also as your representative, so to say, right? Because we're kind of the middleman.
Mm-hmm.
The facility that you're working at would pay Pioneer, and then Pioneer pays the traveler, right? So
Yeah.
you know, you can go to your DOR, and try and settle, as a traveler, I would go and, if I had an issue and talk to the DOR first. And then if that's an issue or, it's coming from upper management or something, I would reach out to my recruiter and say, look, hey, this is what they're saying. You might get an email from them or a call or, whatever. This is why my productivity has been lower or, so on and so forth. So we're definitely the middleman and we're here to advocate for you as well. Um, so if you're struggling with the productivity or they're trying to ask you to do something that you feel is a little sketchy or you don't feel comfortable with it, like we're here to be like, no, they're not going to do it. Like, kind of a thing. And
This was not part of the deal
yeah, pretty
that
much.
they agreed upon, and we got the contract that says that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, and I would assume like having a good relationship with your recruiter too, being both respectful and just in communication, like you said, is also going to help with any situation that arises.
Yeah.
So.
So tips for travelers that want to get into it. Um, a few other things that are really important is finding your recruiter too, right? There's a lot of companies out there and not all of them are great.
Hmm.
Just like there's, healthcare companies out there, that not all of them are great, right? So
Hmm.
you want to find yourself, we typically say in the travel industry, you want to work with like 2 to 3 recruiters. I personally only worked with one because if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of situation. I
Understandable.
hope to be that situation for all of my travelers, but
Yeah,
I
try it out.
understand. But you got to surf the market too and see, another travel company might have an exclusive contract with a hospital that you're looking to go to or something like that too. So it's good to have a few under your belt that you're working with, but also going back to communicate with your recruiter. Make sure your recruiter knows that you're working with, these 2 other companies because the biggest thing too, and this is where it gets into kind of, some potentially, some sketchy situations, is some recruiters will submit you for a job, which means we send your resume over to that company, to see if they want to interview you for the job. They'll submit you without you knowing. And,
Mm.
that's something at Pioneer we never do. We're always transparent. I will ask you and make sure I get a yes, like at least twice before are you sure you want me to submit you to this job kind of a thing? Because if
Okay,
you
I'm submitting you, right?
yeah, because if you get submitted by, company A and then Pioneer submitting you to the same job and you're submitted, your resume is in there twice from two different companies, it's kind of a conflict of interest and it looks bad, so
Mm.
you want to make sure that you're not getting, that rap necessarily or that look, you want to make sure what's going on, where your resume is going and when, um, and to make sure, so that I know not to try and submit you to that job because you've already been submitted by another company,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So it's really important um, to know your recruiter, have a good relationship with them, and trust them, which is huge and something that like is one of my goals as a recruiter, especially as a PTA turned recruiter, because I've heard horror stories and people get ghosted by their recruiters because they just they'll just stop talking to them and that's frustrating when you're trying
Yeah.
to you have a job and you picked up your life and moved out you know 5 states away and you have no friends or family out
Yeah,
near
your
you
support system isn't
and your
there.
support system is your recruiter and they're ghosting you, well that's like you don't know what's going on, kind of a thing. So that's definitely one thing is make sure you trust your recruiter. um and then um also with pay packages, sometimes companies will bait and switch you. And that's super frustrating, as a traveler, as a PTA, and as a recruiter. It's frustrating
Yeah.
because A, it's driving up the market and it's giving, PTAs, travelers, an expectation that they can get X amount of money when really a company is saying, hey, we can give you, 3 grand a week. And then you call them and they're like, hey, hey, I'm interested in this job, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. They get you sold on it, get your resume, all of that. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have enough experience. We can only get you $2,000 a week or something, and
Jeez.
let me preface so that I don't sound like I'm bait and switching. A PTA can probably never make $3,000 a week. So, if it sounds too good to be true, or you see a job that's posted for a travel company that looks too good to be true, it very much likely is.
There's a good
and
chance.
is a bait and switch. Yep. And then if you do get that dream contract, and it is legit, make sure you get it in writing. Absolutely get it in writing and make sure everything is, kosher and laid out for you. A good recruiter will do that. If your recruiter's not doing that, they're not a great recruiter. Something is up. So you definitely, you just got to look out for yourself and advocate for yourself to an extent as well. Because they're out there, and it's unfortunate when you hear a traveler that's like, well, I heard I could get this much, from this company, and then, you don't. Um, it's, and then you can't. You're like, you have to break it to them, and you're like, I'm sorry, like that's probably a bait and switch. Like I can't get you that much.
You're like, if
and
you do,
likely
let
no
me
one
know.
can. Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah,
want to
we're
see
like,
this.
let me know. Send me the contract. I want to see this, because then I know I can be asking for that much from other companies too. So it's you definitely have to be careful. And that's, like I said, I'm trying to put myself out there as one of those trusted recruiters. Um, and have Pioneer as one of those trusted companies too. Like, we're never going to do that to you. We're going to be upfront. We're going to be completely transparent with everything through the whole process. And not trying to hide or bait and switch you or anything like that. We want you to have the best experience as a traveler as possible and live your best life.
Yeah, you want to work for everybody. You don't want to make people pissed off, because then they're just not going to come back to you anyways.
Exactly.
So, yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I know we completely went over that time.
Every time.
I told you, every single time.
Every time.
Every single time we end up just, like I said, which is all great. We enjoy these so much. Honestly, I learn so much from every single person that comes on, and you have been absolutely amazing, by the way. And thank you for being so transparent too. Honestly, was there anything else? I know we were kind of at that point, but anything else that you want to make sure that you get out there, or you want to say, uh, you know, that you haven't already, or want to add to?
One more tip that I would give is, because traveling, you're moving around, right? And taxes can be rough as a traveler, right? So talk to my next best advice would be talk to a tax professional before you start traveling. We always recommend traveltax.com. A little plug there, but I personally did my taxes through them this last year, and they've been incredible. But they specialize in travel tax, and I've learned that not all accountants do that. Initially, when I started traveling, I tried to do TurboTax, and I feel like my returns got totally messed up. So
it was like, we don't know how to do this.
Yeah, because you're dealing with taxable and non-taxable income, right? So how travelers make their money, or extra money, so to say, right, is through non-taxable stipends. So you're only getting taxed $20 an hour. So the government only, sees that you're making $20 an hour taxable. Well, then you're getting housing and meal stipends. That's how you're making most of your money. Talk with a tax professional. You have to have, your tax home, and there's a bunch of rules on that. As far as how often you need to go back to your tax home so that you're not abandoning it, and all of that kind of stuff. So definitely
I didn't even know you had to go back to your tax home.
Yeah, you typically want to go back at least 30 days throughout a calendar year. Like, it doesn't have to be consecutive, but 30 days you need to be back in your tax home. So, so that you're not abandoning it. And then you got to be able to have receipts and stuff like that, just in case you got audited. And
wait, what happens if you abandon it? Now I'm curious. Do you know?
I think then you technically become
Are you homeless? You're stateless?
Well, you become more permanent in the area that you're in.
Okay.
So then you'll end up getting taxed on that non-taxable income, and then you kind of end up getting, screwed because all that non-taxable income that you thought you were getting, you're going to get taxed on at the end of the day.
So if you get really smart, you end up moving to somewhere like Nevada or Texas that's got no state income tax. And that becomes your home base, and then travel from there.
There you go. Yep. But you got to make sure, like I, like wrote up a rental agreement with my mom to rent a room out of my mom's house, and that was my tax home, right? Your permanent residence. Yep. And then you're traveling, and then there's rules like you can't stay in one geographic area for more than a year because then you're considered permanent. So there's a lot of different rules and things. I will be the first to admit I probably didn't follow them 100%. So let's just hope I don't get audited. But
it was a learning curve. We'll just call it that.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve. So that's why I, talk to travel tax. They do free consultations. You can just call them and ask them your questions. And, I think that's the best way to do it because you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you, basically put a bullseye on your back for the IRS,
Yeah, and I think that's awesome too because like doing it up front, I never thought about doing it before you actually start traveling, but it makes sense because then you can really see like, okay, this is how I can maximize my money because this is what's really going to be taxed. Which sometimes I feel like that can be hard to kind of understand when you just get a paycheck.
Well, and also planning, as a traveler, you typically have to plan like your life, 3 to 6 months ahead of time because when you're signing that contract, as recruiters, we're going to ask you, what's your time off? Do you have any time off? Well, if you need to go back to your tax home, mine was Indiana, for 30 days throughout the year, you're going to need some time off, or are you going to take that time off in between contracts? Can you afford that? What does your take home pay need to be for that contract for you to be able to afford that? There's a lot of things that you got to kind of plan
job within your tax state?
Yes. They say that there's this 50-mile rule. It's really popular. It's actually a myth. You don't have to be 50 miles away from your tax home, but it has to be a non-commutable distance, right? So that can be different. In San Francisco, going 10 miles can be a non-commutable distance, where going 10 miles in Indiana is a 15-minute drive, kind of a thing or something. So a non-commutable distance away from your tax home is in order to be considered a traveler. Now, if you wanted to take a travel contract, with us, we do have local contracts, but you're going to get taxed on all of that money. So you don't get your stipends.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it as far as that goes too. And that's definitely something, questions that get asked very frequently amongst travelers to recruiters.
I wouldn't have even thought about doing, like I said, the tax beforehand. And that, I feel like that would help so much, bring so much mind at ease.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a way before jumping into the deep end. But yeah, that was awesome. Ken, did you have any other additional questions that you want to ask?
Yes, I'll do one more. Just one more quick one.
No worries.
Just because
I can keep going.
I know.
Let's go.
And then once we finish, like we come up with even more. It's a mess. That's why these run so long. Because we've had a couple, like Laura said earlier, like we had a couple traveler PTAs on. Any advice for like negotiations? Because we mentioned like the stipends and the hourly pay and things like that. Like you have to be able to be flexible on a couple things.
Sure.
As far as like the stipend, hourly, can PTAs and recruits be able to negotiate those things, or it's kind of like set in stone? Like this is kind of what this place is offering, and that's what it is.
Yes and no. So, there's numbers that we look at on the recruiter side of things that won't mean anything to the traveler. But there's guidelines that we stay in. As a company, we have to be able to keep our lights on, right? So there's a certain overhead. And so sometimes that's kind of the limit that I run into when building pay packages. Obviously, I want to try and get you as much money as possible. I've been there. As a traveler, I want it, you want that take home to be good, right? You want it to make it worth your while. But there are some companies that just won't pay enough to get you or me to that magic number. But there are certain ways, on our side that we can kind of play with things a little bit. We can always try and go in at a higher rate for you. But depending on how high we have to go, they could always reject you, So once you go in at that rate and they say no, like you can't try again, kind of a thing. So it's kind of a fine line, a little game you have to play around with the numbers a little bit. There's definitely ways to do it within reason,
Yeah.
A little bit here, a little bit there that I can, kind of play around with. But other than that, typically it's somewhat rigid. So yes and no. I guess, the famous therapy answer is it depends.
Definitely very famous. I think that was the only other question I had for now. I don't know, Flora, if you had any more.
No, I think for me that kind of wraps up almost all my questions. I'm sure, or like we always say, we always think once later on too. But honestly, it was really cool to see both sides of being on it and then transitioning in and really kind of getting that good idea of what it's like, more dealing with the contracts and getting the job versus the actual jobs themselves, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So it was definitely a very cool, unique thing. I really honestly wish I would have understood traveling a lot better when I was younger. Now it's hard when you got a needy puppy dog, which that's why I was on mute a second ago, barking at Amazon. Let them just deliver my packages, okay, Clifford?
I hear you. Mine does the same thing.
Right? He doesn't bark, but man, Amazon opens that garage and he's like, "Excuse you." But to leave him at home. So I think it's awesome to kind of hear the difference and some tips and tricks and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
And I'm always here if you guys do think of other questions. I'm happy to hop on another,
we
episode.
might just have to have story times later with you might just need to share some recruiting info of you won't believe what this person asked for. I feel like might be some good times as you start to get into the job.
Oh yeah, give me some time. I'm sure or I can come up with some stories from my coworkers.
Right? I was like, hey, if you guys all want to pitch together and put some stories in, you want to come on and do story time, please don't do this. Don't request this. Hey, we're down for that. We love a good story time.
If you're flexible, I will probably not have a story about you. So
right, there you go.
Just putting it out there now.
This person's like, I want $100 an hour, and I only want to be working between 2 and 4, and I must get off early at 3:30 though. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
So you just want to pay not to? What? Huh? I'm so confused. I feel like there's got to be someone out there like that. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up today's episode. Thanks again so much, Nicole, for coming on.
Yes, thank you very much.
This will probably get split into 2, kind of like we were talking about earlier. So I think that kind of is it. So don't forget to follow us and if you guys have any questions for Nicole, go ahead and reach on out. Nicole, are you okay if we put your information below?
Absolutely. Please do. Give me a follow on Instagram too.
We'll tag you in the posts. Yep. We'll tag you in the post and everything, and then we'll add your information to the description below. So if you guys are looking into traveling, you guys have some questions, you guys want to see if it's right for you, honestly, hit up Nicole. She's amazing. I've been talking to her for the past week and a half, and she's just great. So hit her up, but don't forget to follow, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But I think that wraps it up.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes. No, thank you. All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Later.
Bye.
The information in this video or podcast is not intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained in this video or podcast is for general information purposes only and does not replace your professors or a consultation from your own doctor or healthcare professional.